We are back live. Apologize to everyone for the technical difficulties. Silas, let's try this one more time, shall we?
Yeah, one more time. Third time is the charm. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and thanks for being patient to join our panel discussion today, talking about robotics and factory automation. My name is Silas Robertson. I'm with Olympus Controls, also Applied Automation, a group of companies doing robotics, vision, network connectivity, motion control for factories. That group is Olympus Controls, ACS, and Gibson Engineering. And today we're putting on a virtual trade show. And with that comes some technical challenges and some flexibility that we're working through. So appreciate you being patient with us and joining us for a great discussion, I hope, talking about robotics and implementing those in your factory. I think we're all sort of seeing challenges with supply chain, part shortages, labor shortages, and robotics is a great opportunity for you to improve your factory, solve some of those problems, and we hope that through the discussion you might get some ideas and maybe some things not to do. Today is going to join us. We did lose one of our panel members for some technical difficulty. Stephen Shane from Shane Installation Services was not able to join us, but Cale Harbour from ACS is going to represent him and help us along the discussion. Welcome, Cale. Thanks for joining us today. And then we also have Eric Smith from Mid-South Automation. Eric has a great level experience in assembly and test, process material handling. They do design, engineering, installation, and they help you out with those semi-automated or automated processes for your factory, and they can really help you implement it. So really excited to have Eric today with us. And Juan Carlos Castillo from Epson Robotics here to talk and represent our supplier partners and talk about technology and robotics that you might find and use in your factories. With that, I'm going to start some of the conversation up. We'll get the panel discussing. We'll kind of bounce some questions back and forth through the panel, and hopefully you can learn from that interaction. One of the questions, Cale, that we were going to talk with Stephen about was, what was the kind of the driving force behind that first robotics application in the factory? And can you help us answer that question?
Sure. The first application I got to be a part of in working with industrial robotics was with a SCARE robot installation. It was in an application where we were putting spark plug wires inside of a channel, and they were dealing with a lot of quality issues, and they were dealing with repetitive motion injury. And by utilizing that first robot, we were able to press the wires down in the channel and eliminate that repetitive motion injury for the operator and improve the quality of what they were turning out. So the main driving force was not only throughput, but also the improvement of the livelihood of the operators on the line.
Okay, great. Eric, just a quick question for you. When someone goes to do their first installation, like Cale was talking about, what is some advice that you might give them when they're looking at that application?
Somewhat varies depending on degree of installation. If it's a single application, I think the core of it is education, getting the proper training, embracing the technology, being committed to it long term. If you're going to see it on a broader scale, is to make sure that it extends all the way into proper staffing and their education as well.
Got it. So do you see, for customers that you work with and implementing, customers that really commit to that training and having, maybe that educated workforce that's using it every day, being able to work on it and solve some problems on their own, those are the most successful?
Yes, absolutely.
Got it.
Those that don't commit to it. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Those that don't commit to it, what happens?
Yeah, so those that don't commit are those that we come into in hindsight, and we see robots in the corner, mothballed, or in the boneyard not being utilized, and then they make a second attempt, and hopefully they get it right, then and they're successful.
Cale and Juan, do you see the same things throughout the industry? Customers that really embrace that educational piece, having a higher success rate?
Absolutely. I mean, from our end, the technology has become so simple to use that customers, especially those who have engineering teams, are tempted to go and try to develop the application on their own. But come on, let's be honest. Who reads the manual from beginning to end? No one does. So there is always that one command. There's always that one thing that you miss, you skip. Therefore, you make your application way more complicated and you struggle way more than you should have. So by just devoting that time to take the training, you have this opportunity to learn so much that otherwise you could miss.
And Cale, same thing. I'm assuming you do a ton of
Yeah.
training at ACS, so you probably see that.
Oh, we see that all the time. For people to use a product based in technology, they need to have the education to be able to apply it, to be able to use it, and to be successful with it. And I'm actually talking to you today from our test lab. We actually have one of our new hires going through a training process right behind me here. And we always have felt that training was a core part of what we brought to our marketplace for our customers, because if we could teach them how to use it and be successful, then they're more likely to improve their manufacturing location, and which increases our ability to do more business with them in the future.
Got it. Eric, when you see customers that are looking at robotics and automation, is there a common ROI that you see, or sort of that low-hanging fruit that companies really gravitate towards? Or what is a typical ROI that you're seeing with automation right now?
That can vary widely. We see anywhere from a 1 to 3 year being an acceptable range, nothing really beyond that. Depends on, the vision of the manufacturing company that we're dealing with.
Got it. Obviously, you see some that are shorter. The ones that are shorter payoffs, do they tend to be single applications, high throughput applications, or any commonality that you see there?
It depends on how laborious the operation that's being replaced. We've been successful in implementing things that have less than 6-month ROI. In some cases, again, the sell is not there. Somebody's got to be committed to the long-term investment and look at those 2 to 3 year applications.
Got it. How about Cale, some common pitfalls that you see for applications? I mean, we talked about training a little bit, but are there some other things that maybe people should avoid?
Wow, that's a good question. Taking on an application that may be too complex as their first project. When you go to use a piece of technology, especially with a robot, try to start with something that's a realistic first project, maybe a basic pick and place or a basic dispensing. It's not that the complex projects can't be done, and it's not that we don't have the technology, but when end users seem to take on a project that just trying to incorporate every potential option a robot could do, it becomes so complex so quickly that they're not able to be as successful as fast as they would like to be. But if they start with something that is a little more straightforward and they get that success under them, then they can build on that experience, they can build on that knowledge, and build up to the more complex applications a lot easier with a lot less effort and heartburn.
Yeah, Eric, you mentioned sort of robots collecting dust in the corner. Is that something common? We talked about training, but did you see that people just tried to bite off more than they could chew?
Absolutely. We see that quite often in smaller manufacturers that jump out there and try to do the right thing, but the commitment's not there, and it gets pushed by the wayside because they've got to continue to operate.
Yeah, Juan, a question on technology. What are some of the significant sort of robotic innovations that you think are going to impact manufacturing? From a supplier and technology provider, where do you see this going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe that there are two things that will have a huge impact in the industry. The first one is ease of use, of course. I mean, as technology has been evolving and has been changing, the way in which you program a robot today is so different from what it used to be. So that means that, robots now fit in so many more applications that in the past they didn't used to. So that evolution of technology, making it simpler to deploy, simpler to program, but also simpler to install. I mean, a few years ago, you truly needed a whole to plan the infrastructure to have a robot. Nowadays, I mean, you still need to plan for it, but it's nothing compared to what you used to have to do. So that simplicity is one of the things. The other thing, of course, is cost. As the robotics technology start evolving, the cost of starting to automate start going down. So all of a sudden, it is not only the traditional industries that are thinking about automating, but traditional industries, of course, automotive, of course, electronic manufacturing. But all of a sudden, you have others from textile and of course, food, and for sure, medical. So all of those industries that maybe in just a few years were not as heavily invested in automation, now they can think and access this kind of technologies. So.
Yeah. Well, another question. I mean, robotics. If you were in a previous session, we had Esben talking about sort of a history of robotics, and robots have been around for quite some time. But we really see sort of this exponential, explosive growth in lots of applications, and just a really large increase of robotics use. What do you attribute that to be, since robots have been around for some time?
No, I completely agree with that. I mean, robots have been around for quite some time, but again, they were always big, always bulky. So they were being applied to kind of these niche applications. I mean, niche, depending on the industry you work, of course, in the assembly lines of automotive cars, in soldering, in painting. Those were the three main. But all of a sudden, again, as technologies evolve, as it becomes easier to automate, and also the need, the products are becoming way more complex. So it comes a point where it is humanly impossible to be able to assemble a product with the required precision and the required speed. So I would say that you have these three trends converging in the same direction, meaning ease of use, cost, and then the need, the product, the quality, the speed. All of this is forcing the technology to find ways to, the industries to find ways to automate.
Got it. Eric, a question for you. When a customer comes and they have an application for you, what are some things that you would direct them towards a collaborative robot versus an industrial robot in applications? What are some things that customers should look for and maybe start their search in the right direction? Can you give any advice there on just the general technology for those two categories?
That's kind of a tough one. I think that collaborative has definitely become a buzzword, in recent years, and so we see a lot of people that come looking for that collaborative experience, but their application doesn't necessarily necessitate that. So we try to ground them in that regard and help them to understand whether conventional or collaborative, and then go through the safety analysis or the utilization of the collaborative to make sure that it's if we go that path, that it's properly deployed.
Yeah, no, great. Would you agree that a collaborative robot, if somebody has 60 parts per minute, is probably not a collaborative application, even if they'd like it to be, just because of the speeds, right? I think there's some common things that people should look at, correct?
Absolutely.
And are those kind of common things? If I said speed, payload, is that's probably also a limitation of the collaborative robots, and maybe environment? Are those the three that you would look at?
Yes, I would agree with that. Wanted to add that even in a non-collaborative type robot, we can create a collaborative environment. So we can use a conventional robot with the safety components, external and internal to the robot, to create a collaborative environment. We've seen that where we want to work at high speed, but we have the need to potentially engage the work area on a regular basis, and we don't have to go through the normal shutdown, startup, that sort of thing. So we've oftentimes done that as well, to deploy safety scanners, things like that, to kind of get the best of both worlds.
Great. And would Juan, kind of being on the technology side, do you see the same thing, sort of a differential if you have high component throughput those sorts of things. Would you see the same thing as kind of a separation of those target technologies for customers?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I believe that each one of those technologies has an area to shine, and if deployed correctly in the right application, both industrial and collaborative truly can give the customer the ROI that they are expecting. So the main things that we usually tend to see is, as Eric mentioned, the customer wants to use that collaborative because it could be the buzzword. But if from our perspective is, yes, the speed, yes, the accuracy, also sometimes the cost. In all honesty, the traditional industrial robots tend to be lower cost than a collaborative. So now, not to say that there are not instances in which a collaborative is not justified. Of course, there are. But those are the four elements. Again, the payload, the speed, the accuracy, and sometimes the cost as well.
A little bit about the ecosystem of all of these robotic systems. You've got grippers and feeders and vision systems, and boy, you name it. It seems like there's a part out there that can apply to these robotics. How does a customer effectively negotiate through all those options? Eric, can you give us some thoughts on that? I mean, it's a big world out there.
It is. I think working with an integrator is pretty important. A lot of people think that their staff are very capable, but as an integrator and a supplier like you guys, we see so much. We see what goes on in 100 plants versus what goes on in the world of one. So oftentimes we can bring ideas from other areas that can be applied in a plant and kind of help them move forward. It is tough to navigate. It is tough to stay on top of technology and know what is capable. And so I think it's important to partner well with your suppliers and integrators to ensure whether you do some of it yourself or you source all of that out, that you're doing things properly and effectively.
Agreed. Cale, anything to sort of add on top of that for that ecosystem?
Yeah, same type thing. Having someone like a quality integrator and a quality supplier who has the experience in the multiple industries to bring that additional knowledge base is really a huge benefit. Being able to deploy the right technology in the right place so that if you've got something that needs to run superhuman, high speed, high precision, you've got an industrial robot able to, let's say, for example, fill a tray, but out at the aisleway where the operator is, and you only have to pick up one tray at a slower pace. Having that collaboratives to eliminate the safety guards or the cages that might be in the way to get in the way of traffic and flow, and have the two technologies work together, because they really do solve two different arenas. And being able to pull in one of our manufacturers, such as Epson Robotics, or one of our integrators, such as Mid-South, to be able to add that additional wisdom in their experience can really help tailor the situation to get the best ROI possible.
Yeah, and Juan, we've definitely have seen suppliers adding technology to their portfolio. Like we know Epson has flexible feeding systems and integrated vision systems, and we've had feedback from customers that are like, just makes that implementation time easier. Is that really a drive for suppliers to add those features for integrators and customers to implement?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we, as robot manufacturers, we must build an open product, meaning a product that is capable of communicating with everything and anything under all circumstances. But as you mentioned, Silas, the ecosystem the options are so wide out there that it's really, really hard to know what to choose and how to implement it in a program. I mean, so the fact that things communicate, that accessories communicate, doesn't mean that the communication will be seamless or easy. So again, I would say that today technology is designed to be open and able to communicate. But when it comes time to do an application efficiently in a very short period of time, that's when the rubber meets the road and where the true challenges may arise. So having something that has been proven, integrated from the designer of the product, in this case the manufacturer, truly brings an advantage to the customer, not only on how it will operate, but how much time and effort it will take to make it work as expected. Now, this is not to say, and I would also like to add the importance of partnering with the right system integrator. We see our best customers, the ones that we've had for the longest time. These are companies that have been automating for 15, 20 years. They still use a system integrator. Why is that? The reason is applications are so flexible. The kind of things you can do with a robot is so varied, but each application will be different. So it is very hard for these customers to be specialists on automation. They are specialists on their product. So partnering with a system integrator truly helps them, even though we as manufacturers are making sure that technologies talk and are well integrated.
Great. Cale, I don't know how we're doing on time. I know we're running into the end. Do you want me to wrap up here?
Yeah, I think we're going to need to. One quick announcement that I'm going to make is that in the very beginning of our panel discussion today, we had our live stream link break on us, which when you're doing a live event, unexpected things can happen. We did get it reestablished, and I'd like to let the rest of the panel know that we do have customers and people online with us in the room that is watching us live, but they may not have seen the entire discussion. Now, we have recorded everything here. This is going to be posted on our YouTube channel, and we will send the link out. So anyone who missed the first 5-6 minutes of the event would be able to watch it in its entirety. So I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning, but it will be there to be able to reference in the future. Silas, I'll let you take us out.
That sounds great. All right, sounds great. I'm going to call that first session the bloopers reel, and people can enjoy that. But I do want to thank all of our partners for helping us put on this virtual event series today. I'd also like to remind everybody that is online with us, go ahead and schedule some visits with some of the suppliers that are in the showroom there. They'd be glad to talk to you, schedule some time, talk about the technologies, gather more information. And that's what today is all about, is just helping you along your journey. Hopefully we're providing you a good basis of information and a great resource for you in the future. With that, I'm going to sign off. Thanks, Cale, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Silas. Thank you.
Thank you.